Good afternoon. My name is Sherry Borick, and welcome to the Advanced Clio Customer Roundtable. I am a Clio certified consultant, a legal technology consultant. I've been in the industry for about 28 years. I started when I was 10. That is my story. I am sticking to it. Back in the days. So I'd like to give an opportunity to introduce our panel. But before I do so, I want to just get a quick question of how many in the room, this is an advanced Clio customer roundtable, how many of you would consider yourself beginning or beginner users of Clio? Okay. And how many of you would say that you are advanced? You want to learn more? Okay, great. How many of you are wondering why you're not on the table and why you weren't? No, I'm not going to ask that one. Okay, so let me start by allowing you guys to introduce yourself.
My name is Jim Palmer. I'm with the Law Office of James Blucker in Southern California. We specialize in real estate law, focusing on evictions.
My name is Callie McLaughlin. I'm a paralegal at Buxton & Colley. Buxton & Colley practices business transactions and securities, and we're a law firm of 8 attorneys and 1 paralegal.
My name is Jacob Stacy. I'm from Medina McKelvey. We're primarily an employment defense firm over in California. We have 13 attorneys and about 33 internal personnel. I'm a data analyst, but I mostly work in business operations.
And how long have each of you or your teams been working with Clio?
I onboarded our firm about 4 years ago with Clio. Prior to that, they had no technology at all.
Okay.
Our senior partner actually did Clio in 2010, and then I've been using it for 9 years.
I'm with Jim here. I onboarded Clio about 4 years ago from my firm. Before then, we didn't use an LPM.
You know, I had an opportunity to meet some of Callie's team, and we were talking about in 2010 when Clio was yellow. Does anyone remember the days that Clio was yellow? We have a few. That there's many years of blue, but before blue there was yellow. And so my question to you guys is. My first question to you. In fact, before we get started, let me advance my slides here. We want to make sure that we thank our various partner sponsors, the innovator exhibiting sponsors, as well as the visionary exhibiting partners. Those of you who have attended conferences before know how important it is that we have sponsors who are helping to promote and really subsidize the cost of the conference. Here I am again. My firm name is Bora Consulting Group, and our team on the round table here, we have each of you, and we will also repeat our contact information at the end should you want to take more time to connect with us. So our agenda today is we're going to have a roundtable discussion. Each of our panelists, and it's been amazing. We've had a couple of months to get to know each other, and everyone brings a different aspect, a different perspective to the way that they're using Clio and the things that they're doing. We're also going to allow everyone to have brief demonstrations of certain things that they specifically do with Clio. And we want to grab and have an opportunity for people to ask questions from the audience. And so this is considered part of the Clio Mastery sessions. Today is Monday, October 7th. For those of you who don't already know that, although it does get a little questionable during conference time what day it is. Let me start with a quick question of what is your favorite Clio feature that you are using, that you feel like you're using day in and day out and they use the most? So who wants to start? Jim, why don't you take a moment for that?
We're a pretty small firm. We have 2 licensed attorneys and 3 support staff. And so for us, it's the connection with our clients and utilizing not only some of our third-party integrations, but our document automation, but our client portals and really connecting us to those clients, letting them communicate with us in a centralized place where everyone's updated always about it. So that's really helped kind of bridge that gap of who knows what about what.
I would have to say that document automation and templates and email templates have really taken our firm to the next level. I primarily assist the 4 partners. One person, 4 people is a lot. And so with the features inside of Clio, I can like create myself multiple times.
For me, mostly I use reporting. And as I'm sure many of you saw, that we have a bunch of new reporting capabilities coming. So it's really exciting.
And so, in addition, I know Kelly just mentioned all the features inside Clio. We also have just dozens and dozens. I was amazed that we have up to, I think, 280 third-party integrations now that are available with linking in some way, integrating with Clio. So the question would be, what's your favorite third-party, like the non-Clio integrations?
Hopefully a vendor isn't in here. We actually got rid of all of our third-party integrations and are just inside of Clio now.
And what made you do that? I know there were some examples that you shared before where there were some things that you were doing in third party that you were able to incorporate.
Yes. Well, Clio luckily has bought out most of the other things that we were using, like Lexicata back in the day, LawYaw, but also like ShareFile. We no longer need to use that because there's Client Portal. It's just really like getting into Manage and seeing what it has available.
Got it. And Jacob, there are some things that you mentioned when we were talking earlier about the third-party integrations that your firm takes advantage of.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too many. Clio has become a pretty comprehensive tool at this point. We still use the Outlook email integration, but I think that's technically Clio, but that's been useful for getting emails directly into Clio if you don't fully utilize the communications tab.
Jim, it's all you.
All right. So the things that we use in our firm are to streamline and make sure your efficiencies are better. And so we've really taken on specifically 2 different third-party integrations, one being the InfoTrack e-filing integration and the Proof Serve integration, connecting us with our process servers out in the field. And so for the way we've done it is we've had to build specific custom fields inside of Clio that we can pull data from to connect into these different processes and systems that we use on a daily basis. So the screen you're looking at, so like I said, my firm does evictions. So here Mickey Mouse is evicting Goofy from Toontown because he didn't pay his rent. And it's information that we have to have captured across all of our different platforms, and building it in one centralized place at the first set us up to streamline it down the road, especially with these integrations and things. Some of these screenshots, I will say, are a little outdated. There is a new update coming out very soon. So if you see them shortly, they will look a little different. But what's nice from it is you can file directly from Clio into these, which is allowing not just having a different standalone system that someone has to learn, build out, but our support staff can get in there. Our attorneys can use this. When we have assistants come in, they can utilize this. And it's very intuitive of how to get to these different landing pages and creating your different matters and filing into cases. And so as you see, these are the different information. So I have all of it at a glance in my Clio. I then can put it into the e-filing system from a quick couple of clicks. It says what I need to do. It gets me in there and it processes it. Well, the one big thing about a lot of softwares out there, especially if you're going through the old school, is you don't get confirmations. And here we get the confirmations right away. If I file it, the attorney gets a confirmation as well, and vice versa. If my assistant does it, I get a confirmation. And it's the confirmation that it was received and that it was accepted. And so we now have visibility into the court process, seeing what is the court doing? Where's this document at? Has it been filed? Who filed it? But I think the biggest takeaway for InfoTrack integration for us is that, you're going to hear how Callie and Jacob are going to talk about streamlining and maximizing your billable hours and how to capture that. Well, a lot of the times these activities get forgotten, they fall off. Well, with using these integrations, those activities get pushed right into Clio and we don't miss those billings anymore. So we see the line item that says, this is the billing it was pushed through. I know it's captured. I trust that the system has captured it. I don't have to micromanage the assistants to make sure, put your billing in. It's there. But also the biggest streamline.
Let me ask you a quick question. I hate to interrupt your flow, but when you say billings, are you referring to the time it took to do these InfoTrack filings, or are they something else?
Yeah, that's a good call. So this is the activity expense report. So your COGS, cost of goods, and what you still need to bill your client, but it's not a billable hour per se. It's what our expenses are. This is an expense that we need to capture, push onto the client for whatever reason it is. But the biggest part of this whole integration is the files. Once it's processed by the court, it gets dropped right into Clio. I don't have to go search for it. My assistant doesn't have to go search for it. The attorney doesn't. It's there. It's at the tip of my fingers. Everyone sees it. You have the timeline on the front page that says there's a document been loaded. We know that it's the court document. We see when it happened. So there's a lot more real-time visibility into it. And we're not having to go through 2, 3, 4, 5 steps to find those different processes and where's this document at? Who did this? It's all right there for us. So that's the big one with InfoTrack. And then our proof serve, proof serve is where our process servers are. And in our line of work, there's a lot of rules. I'm in Southern California, so you can imagine how strict even just our regular laws are. But when you come to evictions, it's even stricter. And so we've partnered with them and we were able to tell our process servers, in the bottom right of the screen that you're seeing is a set of rules that we've said, these are the rules that they have to follow. I know those process servers are going to follow those rules. I don't have to worry about it. I can send it over to them. They have it. Again, I can see when those attempts are made. There's photos, there's timestamps, there's GPS stamp, which is actually kind of a cool new feature that I'm noticing. It kind of interesting for when you don't have an address. Sometimes it happens out in rural areas where I live. But the big thing for us is using this system is the chat feature. I can chat directly in with the process server. So if they're out in the field, there's an issue, they notify me right away. I can correct it. I'm not having to take days to get it fixed. Not having to go through a whole set of emails back and forth, try to figure it out. It's there. It automatically hits my email. I get a notification. There's a flag. There's something wrong. Go look at it. And I can go in right away. And again, with Proof and InfoTrack kind of similar, it's capturing that billing and those expenses again. And Proof Serve will push those into your Clio expenses under a Clio category. And it puts it there for us. Again, I don't have to hunt it down. I don't have to make sure that the assistant's going in, adding that billing, adding that different things. And then the documents, the proof affidavits and the invoices are all right there. And I now don't have to go hunt someone down. Hey, I need this document signed. Hey, I need to do this, which has allowed me to focus on other areas of our firm and law related stuff and let the assistants be able to take on a lot of that day-to-day management, because now the system is set up to do that for us. And so utilizing those two together, we've streamlined the entire process across the entire firm, significantly reducing our time that we're spending doing that admin work and putting it to letting a system do it for us. And that's really helped us put money where we need it.
And so in your firm, a lot of the work that you do is flat fee?
Yeah, so in our area, most of our stuff is flat fee, so we don't worry about hourly. We do get into hourly if we have to go to trial and things like that, but a lot of our stuff doesn't go to trial. So we flat rate, we know it's put in there once, and then it's just the expenses that get added as we go through the process.
So for your firm, adding these two integrations were not only a method of being more efficient, but then it makes it more profitable because it takes less time to do the work of doing the e-filing and the service of process and things like that.
Exactly. Not just more profitable by, freeing me up to do billable hours for other things or other work clients, but it's also capturing those. We had a time where we were missing billing. Oh, this e-file for this document wasn't recorded. It's $15 to $30, but over 100 times, that's a significant amount of money. I don't have to worry about that now, which has helped both the billables and profit, but also making sure it gets captured.
Got it. So when we talk about third-party integrations, that's one aspect of expanding the reach of what you're using, you're streamlining your process and everything. As we all know, Clio is constantly putting new features and functionality into Clio. What I find when I'm doing some training with firms, whether they've been using Clio for years and years or they just started using it, is there's often a aha moment where it's like, oh, when did they put that feature in? When did that happen? Was that always there? And sometimes the answer is it isn't. It wasn't. It did suddenly appear. And that's the beauty of having cloud software, right? Is that there's constant improvement. But has there ever been a time for any of you where there was what I call a new to you feature where maybe it's been there for a while, but you didn't realize it was there?
I'm going to take this one. It was custom fields in Manage. I was building out document automation and stuff and just really utilizing tailoring Manage to us and what we practice. And the tab shows up. So if you add a certain amount of custom fields in, a tab comes up and I was like, oh, they changed the interface again. Okay, the dashboard's different. And they're like, no. It's just because you put that many.
So you exceeded a certain number of custom fields. It used to all live in the dashboard. And suddenly one day there was a new tab at the top that said custom fields within the matter. And it was brand new to you, right? It just had to happen to trigger that moment with that information. Anyone? Did you have one as well?
Sherry and Callie actually taught it to me a couple weeks ago. The dates, you can change dates from being numeric only to an alphanumeric by just adding verbose when you're doing document automation. And that blew my mind. I've been using it in building documents. And I'm like, why can't we do it? And Sherry taught Callie and Callie showed me and they're like, yeah, just do this. Oh, didn't know that could be done.
So let me pause for a second and ask, because that's such a great segue into how do you get to be the expert? How do you get to, whether it's the expert in your office, how did you learn the things that made your office more efficient? And, get to be the person in the know in your office?
A lot of trial and error. And then when you hit the wall, contacting customer support. Clio support is there for you. If you're like, I've tried this 10 times, I'm missing something. They can answer you in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah. I reach out to Clio support all the time if I run into a brick wall. And then I'm like, hey, can we go further? Right? A really obscure topic is in the Matter timelines. When you export that, there's a bunch of codes and you have no idea what they say. I was like, hey, can you please give me the code so I can understand what the Matter timeline says? And they're like, yes. And so you can really easily work together with them to access obscure features of Clio that are not publicly accessible otherwise.
Well,
I found out too, if you bug support enough, they'll either fix the feature or add the feature you want.
Okay. Yeah. Good advocacy there.
Sorry, support.
No, it's great. Have any of you used Clio Academy?
Actually, because when we get our new associates in and they've never used Clio Manage before, instead of me sitting next to them and taking hours and hours and hours, we require them all to do Clio Academy.
And I know that there is a whole series of certified consultants and channel partners who also provide onboarding and consulting and training. And, we've been talking for weeks, and Jim and I just had an interaction yesterday, and he's like, what exactly does a consultant do? And how does that work? And what is your place in that ecosystem? So for me, I know that sometimes I work with clients who are either brand spanking new to Clio, and so it's starting from scratch. And then also I work with clients who they've been using Clio for a while, and they're using like this much of the features or this much of the functionality. And that's one of my favorite things to do, is to work with people and make them understand the tools that they've already invested in and get more out of it. There's a question. Oh, did you want to
one of my
ask
favorite
that?
is the Clio community is actually really great.
Very good point.
I'm kind of stubborn and I want to figure it out myself, and I'm going to do it as many times as I can until I hit a brick wall and, reach out to support. But sometimes there's still a gap. It's not working. And so you go to the community and you're like, hey guys, this is what I'm struggling with, because you're not alone. There's thousands of people out there that have had similar experiences. And I've been able to connect with people, and they've had a slightly different way of doing it than how I was thinking or how I wanted it. And it worked, and it was what I wanted, but I was thinking about it in the wrong aspect. And so that's really kind of helped, as well as, your knowledge can only go so far. Support can only teach you so much, but the community is also there to support you and say, well, you're just asking the wrong question. Change what you're asking.
Kind of like the AI, right? Where if you change the prompt, it changes your answers. And so by putting it out there in the community, you can get beyond what your own knowledge is and get a slightly different way to look at things,
Exactly.
maybe a suggestion, some advice, and know that, like you said, you're not alone in the process. So we have a question on the screen here about what feature do you use the most? Like what can you not imagine that without having it in Clio?
Well, I mean, I guess I jumped the gun earlier. Reports. I do a lot of internal metrics, especially when it comes to personal performance. We help calculate bonuses, do projections like, hey, is someone underperforming, or are they just being overloaded with non-billables, right? I help the firm find and look for those patterns, and I'm able to do that by exporting data out of reports and other various places in Clio.
And you were just telling me about some templating that you had done, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, so the feature in Clio that we use the most is the document automation, and Callie's going to go in much more depth than I am. But one of the things that we use it for is a lot of the motions that we have they're the same motion for every single time you do it. You just got to change client data. Using the power of document automation, I've now streamlined it to 2 clicks versus 30, 40 an hour. So it's really helped us figure out that, and we use it daily, multiple times.
And Callie, I know you have a very unique way of approaching both grow and manage, and I would love to hear more about it.
Well, as I mentioned before, the areas of law are mergers and acquisitions and private equity. That's a very document-heavy practice with 2 partners practicing our corporate side. It's kind of hard to keep up and get the initial drafts over to them. Wanted to kind of like show this video. I'm not going to get into the actual like preparing this, but kind of give you a highlight of what's helped us. Custom fields. Clio Manage is a sandbox. We've looked at other places, but nothing compares. I say it as a sandbox in the fact that I can help build it to gear towards our area of law. The more client information I can put in there, the easier it is. I don't know whoever's been harmed by words find and replace, but instead of using that, you can use a blank document, add these custom fields inside of it, and then it auto-populates from your matter. That means you don't have to worry about a client's name being left in there. You don't have to worry about any other kind of unique information. You can get a nice, clean, efficient document, review it, and then let your attorney know, like, hey, these documents are prepared, their drafts are in documents folder, and that's when they take it and they put their customization in it. They send it off to the clients. It goes back and forth. There's plenty of versions. But building out these custom fields, I know and they know what's on there because this is going to be on our dashboard. They can be like, hey, you know what? We'll go with private equities. The deal isn't going to start this day. We're going to push it off 2 weeks. I then just go update that date, update the documents, and we're ready to go. Once the attorney and the client have approved the documents, a lot of investors don't like to put their own information in. If they've given it once, they want it in there for themselves. They want to be able to just sign and go. And our clients want to get that money in as quickly as possible. So that's where creating these document automations can customize each and everything. And we can be extremely efficient in our tasks day to day. The video right now is just kind of showing how we are creating the investor packet. And what I believe, and I kind of went downstairs and talked to the Clio Grow people about this too. I use Clio Grow differently. We definitely use it as an intake, but we also use it as communication with investors, shareholders, and members. The clients of ours are usually the entities. So we don't like to muck it up and manage, and I can keep all of the communication in Grow. The builder in Grow, a few years ago, we had a client who had 94 investors. Imagine before they built this template builder, I was there until 9:00 at night, individualizing each 94 documents that went out, each email, everything. I was going snowblind, making sure I put in the right name because you tell a person you on accident misspell their name or something, you're getting an email back. Being able to build these just makes our practice more efficient because we are a medium-sized boutique firm. We are definitely going against larger firms who have way more people on the other side usually, especially in mergers and acquisitions and stuff. And we want to give our clients that type of work. We want to be able to punch above our weight. We want to give good work and know that what we're doing is correct the first time. Put data entry in once and you're good to go. Let technology work for you. Don't fight against it. I am one person and trying to do all of this is extremely stressful, but now it's not. What used to take me a day and a half takes 3 hours. We just did that same exact investment round and I had it out. We were having funds in. We closed that investment round within 2 weeks. What normally would take a month to get investors to talk back. Also, too, there's really great features of resending it because, it never hits their inbox. They didn't get it, something like that. So I can always go and look. Once you've set up your workflow, it works for you. I can choose the investor's name. It auto-populates throughout the documents. You can get a customized email. In the email, usually you have to put a bunch of exhibits and stuff like that. It's all in there. I'm not having to go each individual email adding these documents in. And I don't know. We've heard great feedback from investors, clients, and that's brought in even more work for us. And now we can take on, as of right now, we have 4 current investment rounds. I'm at a conference and I just got one of our clients their investment funds. So create the processes, create the workflows.
So just to be clear, you're generating the original documents in Manage. Mm-hmm. You're getting that edited, approved, finalized.
Yes.
You take those documents as a PDF. You generate those as PDF signable documents in Grow. Mm-hmm. And then for your investment round of however many dozens of people, each one of those is essentially been sent a signable document in Grow, manage with templates, tasks, and so on. Yeah. So you can keep track of who has signed, who hasn't signed, and so on. Because they're not really separate matters, but you need to manage them. Shouldn't use the word manage again. You need to have the process set up. And so you're doing that in Grow, even though they're not technically intake. The process is being streamlined through the Grow automations and the document signing and that sort of thing.
Yes. I mean, years ago, we were looking into DocuSign, we were looking into this, trying to figure it out. And then we're like, wait, why would we not just use Grow?
Right.
Why not create a separate matter for this investment round? It pings me, I get an email. I can keep our clients updated a lot quicker. By quick end of the day, I can just go scroll through and say, he signed, they haven't signed, we received money from them.
Right, because
Super efficient.
in Grow, you can see that a whole list of who's pending signing and whose forms have been submitted and who's not and pending. So it gives you a really nice snapshot of that.
Yes.
This was not, when we went over this was not something that I had ever envisioned of using Grow that way. But it's clearly been a game changer for you and your firm.
Yes.
It's amazing. So at the end, we are going to give you an opportunity to ask questions of some of these different workflows that our panelists are mentioning. But I am certain, because the first time that Callie explained it to me, I had to ask her twice, what exactly, how are you using it that way? But it was pretty amazing to see the creative way you made use of the technology. So I have an audience question, and that is, how many of you are tracking your time currently in Clio? A whole lot. Okay, great. Not Jim, because he's using a lot of flat fees. And of those, how many would you think are tracking your time contemporaneously, as more or less as you do the work? So some, yes, a lot of hands that were up before, and maybe not so much. I know that in Clio, there are so many different ways to track your time, and that you can help track your time. And Clio is one of those products that I think of as a proactive case management as opposed to reactive, in that as you do things, you might be prompted to add time, right? You could track time based on calendar events or creating tasks and marking them complete, having your emails, looking at and starting a timer. There's, working on just having your, just a timer by itself. So there's a lot of different ways you can contemporaneously using the app, right? I think I counted once, there's like 10 or 12 ways to track time, but there's always that rush at the end of the month where you have the all hands on deck, everyone better have their time in because we're about to run our bills. And Jacob, your firm has taken that to a new level with making people more aware of, from a reporting standpoint, of tracking their time and are they being contemporaneous or not. So can you speak to that and how the analysis of that has impacted your firm?
Yeah, we really use reports to learn and to educate and to intervene as needed. And I made the reference earlier, like, hey, if someone isn't making the billables, is it because they're inundated with non-billable time, or is it because they're just not making the billables, right? And we can use data to track this. Before we dive in, I just want to say, Callie, you had a great quote, let technology work for you.
Agreed.
And that's all I had to say about that, but it was very good. So before we jump in, when we're talking about contemporaneous time, I just want to point out that there have been several studies that have talked about contemporaneous time, and that if you're not tracking your time contemporaneously, immediately you could be losing 10% of that time entry. By the end of the day, we're looking at maybe 15, 20%. By the end of the week, it could be disgusting numbers like 60+%. And, when it's a 0.3 time entry, maybe you're looking at, I lost 6 minutes. But as Jim mentioned, right, things can snowball. And if that's one attorney a couple times a week, if you have a firm with a number of attorneys, you're losing thousands of dollars a year, if not more. And also, when it comes to contemporaneous time, it's not just ourselves, right? It's like, if you have an excellent memory and you know that you can put your time in at the end of the day or the next day and not lose any time, that is fantastic. But you're the exception, you're not the norm. And when we don't have our time in contemporaneously, the executives often want to see real-time accounts receivable. And if we don't have the time in, suddenly we can't do proper business projections and whatnot. So it snowballs through the entire business all the way up the chain. But so I just want to show you guys, kind of take you through a quick idea of how I look for contemporaneous time. And this is going to be a very easy way for you to replicate that as well. So in the activities section, we're just going to go, you can filter for whatever time range you want to look at. Typically, I'm looking at a week to 2 weeks. And in the filters, you're just going to say all users and set your invoice status to billable. This is so we can avoid catching any contribution time, any non-billable time that your attorneys or billable staff are recording. Those are the only filters I care about. And once I have those set, I'm just going to export to CSV, and I want to make sure I have all available columns because I want all the data that Clio is going to give me. Now, this is a mess, and I don't expect you to read this at all, but I just wanted to show you the raw data export of what this actually looks like. Now, we're only going to be concentrating on a couple of these columns here, primarily the 3 that I've outlined, which is date, created at, and updated at. And the difference is that date is the activity date that in your time entry. That is the date that you see. The created date is a system stamp that says this is when the time entry was actually created. And the updated date is a system stamp of saying when the time entry was actually last modified. Now, what I like to do is I've hidden some of the columns, so it's a little bit more approachable. But essentially, just to very quickly find the contemporaneous time, I take out the flat rates. So that's why flat rate says false. And the created and the updated dates, because they're system stamps, they don't just have today, but they have like the hour and the minutes, AM, PM, PDT, etc. I'm in California, so that's why we have the PDT stamp. So this is in Excel, and you can do this in Google Sheets or any similar program. We just go find and replace space asterisks, which is saying, hey, look for anything after a space, and then we replace it with nothing, which leads to these really nice clean date columns. And now we can actually compare date, which is the date on the time entry, to the created date, which is the system stamp of when it was actually created. So we do this with a very simple if formula. And what this translates to is does the date column, if the date column doesn't equal the created date column, we're going to flag it because it is not contemporaneous. They were not created on the same day. And then just to go a little bit further, once we have identified all the flagged time entries, we're going to pull this unique formula is looking at all of it's the user column. It says, hey, these are all of the unique billers here. And, this is the panel and some Clions, and some of the Clions were kind enough to fudge a bunch of entries, so it looks like they're not very good at tracking their time. But with the billers, and then we can bring that unique formula and add in a COUNTIF. And if you don't like Excel, you don't like formulas, this is just going one ear out the other, talk to ChatGPT. These are very simple formulas, and ChatGPT is very good at Excel. If you know how to ask the right questions, it knows how to provide the right answers. But essentially, with this combination of COUNTIF and unique, we can see how many flags, how many non-contemporaneous entries belong to that biller in that time slot. Now, I just wanted to show you a couple of variations of maybe a little bit more advanced tables. This is still just basic Excel. We've added a couple of extra columns and looking, hey, this is the number of flagged entries they have. This is the total number of entries they have. And then out of all of their billable time entries, we can see the percentage of how much was late. The percentage around here ranges from 50 to 85%. I hope that is not for any of you, right? This is an exaggeration. But realistically, if you have more than 10% of your time entries, you need to investigate and talk, because that is so much money that you are losing. And I wanted to show with a little bit more investment, if you understand pivot tables and you want to manipulate that further, we can get into even more details. And the really nice thing about pivot tables is that you can create this, you can save it, and then you can just reload the data, and this will update to whatever the newest data set is. And so just in this example, I pulled practice areas. So we can see, like, hey, how many flagged entries are in this particular practice area? And we can see where is being affected the most, because we have hourly rates, which is what this is mostly looking at, but you have flat fees, you have contingencies. So being aware of where these problems are coming from allows you to really hone in and focus. And this is not for punishment, right? This is education, because usually this simply comes from a lack of understanding why it's important. And lastly, we just wanted to show you that you can literally, if you export it, you say Excel, make a pivot table, this is what you get. It's very straightforward. That's 2 clicks. So there's a lot of flexibility just depending on how much work you want to put in and how much data you want to see and whether you want to make it reoccurring or just simply a one-time thing.
So I have a couple of questions to follow up with that. First of all,
Yes.
not everybody is a data analyst, and so this may be a little bit intimidating. The sample pivot tables that we put together here are ones that you can get directly out of Clio by exporting the data and using the pivot table feature in Excel without formulas and without extensive Excel. For some people, Excel is their happy place. For many others, it is not. But I will say that the formulas that might be intimidating to some, this last page where we have the sample pivot tables, were ones that we could get out very quickly and easily. And it doesn't require a third-party integration. It's literally data directly out of Clio, exported to Excel, and then using the pivot table features. So that is something that we can get specifically for things like how many hours someone's worked for a period of time, or that doesn't necessarily have to relate to contemporaneous, right? Or by client, you can see there's the one to the right has the names of the clients and who's worked on them and so on. So this is an advanced roundtable, and hopefully just Jim is all of actually, Jim, Callie, and Jacob have checked those boxes of cool things that you didn't think about that you could do on the Clio side. And so just to add one more thing on to what you were saying about losing contemporaneous time, for those who don't track their time because it is a flat fee or a contingency, has anyone ever had to do a fee affidavit at the end of a case that you weren't tracking your time and spent, I saw a couple of nods there, and spent an agonizing 2 or 3 days or more trying to recapture all of the things you did over a very long case because you weren't tracking your time contemporaneously? It's really painful. And now you're under the gun with a deadline and the need to justify the fees or the award or whatever it is. So I am in complete agreement on the, even for analysis or in that eventual time, that dreaded, you must justify your time, that it's worth tracking contemporaneously.
Yeah, and then I'd add one more thought to that, is that even if you're on flat fee, because we use hourly, flat fee, contingency, and even we're experimenting with some subscription-based billing as well. Tracking your time hourly for flat fee is actually still really useful because it gives you an understanding in that you know how much that package deal is worth. And if you know how much that package deal is worth today, it may be different next year, laws change, the amount of work that goes into that process will change. And also, we get new tools, right? We're talking about ChatGPT, other different advances. Suddenly, if your time is halved, do you keep that flat rate? Do you still honor that flat rate? Do you adjust it? But also, every year we have to raise rates. So it's useful for everything, not just metric analysis, but all aspects of your business.
100%. Let's shift gears for a minute and talk about, we had an amazing keynote speech where a lot of either sneak peeks or upcoming new features were announced for Clio. Do you have any thoughts on ones that you see yourself adding to your own firms?
I definitely see Clio automation being implemented heavily at my firm. It's going to help the few things that I haven't been able to automate so far. It's going to take us to that next step.
And are you talking about the automation in Grow or Manage or both?
Mainly Manage. That's the primary what we use, especially if something happens on the case, it can do the next step for us. So creating those document templates that are there, I don't have to think about it. It moved. Okay, it did it for me. So that I see is going to be a huge help. And making sure the correct tasks are assigned on the correct date without thinking about it. That's going to streamline a lot of our work.
I'm really excited to see what the new features of like Clio communication comes out with. I've been trying to get my attorneys to stop texting clients on their personal cell phones and using it in Clio. They've started using it and really like it. So making communication even easier is going to get them all onboarded.
Let me guess.
Yes, reports obviously on the nose. So I guess second, Clio Duo. They announced Clio Duo last year, and we're like, great, where is it? Can we try it? And it just disappeared. But now I think Jack said it's available today. So I have to wait till I get home to try it out. But I'm looking forward to playing with that.
Well, I'll add also that I'm super excited about reporting because that's an area where our clients, sometimes the standard reports that you have in Clio aren't giving you exactly what you need, and the ability to customize the reports is going to be a real game changer for both current clients and then people who were hesitant to come to Clio because of some of the reports that they needed or wanted weren't in Clio at the time. We have about 10 minutes left, so why don't we open the floor for questions? I think we have some people with microphones. Maybe. And if not, you can speak loudly. Go ahead.
We have a number of situations where we have a number of people that need to sign the agreement, and we do it in Clio Manage because we can run conflict checks on those names down the line. And I wanted to understand from you, Kelly, why you use Clio Grow other than just not having excess data in the Clio Manage side of it, or is there a particular reason that Clio Manage doesn't do for you what Clio Grow is doing for you on that front?
Two reasons. We don't want all investor names in Manage just because they aren't our clients and stuff like that. We still do conflict checks within both matters. It's funny because there's sometimes we'll have two different groups, but they'll have the same investors and they'll pop up. And so it kind of like I tag them and I'm like, they're an investor of this company and this company. So like, just be very like aware when I'm sending documents out. And then I don't want to dog on the e-signing and Manage, but I don't think it's up to the capabilities that Grow has. You can, in the Manage one, you kind of have to go out to a different browser and go into, I think it's like Dropbox Sign now to resend. And then Grow, you can just resend from the dashboard.
And Jim, one quick question. You know, one of the it is Jim, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Jacob.
Jake, I'm sorry, Jake.
We're both J's.
Oh. The question I have with regard to attorneys and paralegals inputting data late, inputting their billables late, is that when I run a draft to look at the invoice, if they input it on the 30th of the month, but it's for an entry on the 9th of the month, it shows up on the 30th of the month. When you run the invoice in final form, it'll populate in the correct date order. So how would I be able to get the information to know how to run the data to say, look, here's the late entries that you've done other than looking at the draft? Is there some, because you had mentioned this formula, which 3 best years of my life were Math 101. So the odds of getting this would be tough. How could we achieve the same goal?
Right now, you're going to want to look at activities. It can be broken down simply, right? I added like 3 different level of complexity steps. Really, you can teach somebody to walk through this in 10 minutes. If you're used to it, you can do the simplest version in about 30 seconds. But yeah, you just need to export activities, and it's just there's 2 columns you want to look at. The date, which relates to activity dates, and then the created date, which is the system stamp of when that time entry was actually created. And then, like I said, there's also the updated date when it was last modified, which is useful, but depending on if you have people go back and check time entries and edit them, and especially if it's a non-billable personnel checking your attorney's entries, for example, for maybe a small typo, the modified date gets less accurate. But really, that's the best answer to that. The new reporting capabilities may change this, but we're not going to know until next year.
Okay, my question is around contingency planning. So, not to reveal, so Clio is a cloud-based software, right? So my question is around availability. Have you ever had instances where it wasn't available? Do you have contingency plans in place? And if so, how has Clio helped you with your contingency planning? Is that too big of a question? I'm sorry.
We don't have a contingency, as crazy as that is, because we came from the pen and paper. We obviously have hard copy files because we take those to court and things like that. But if Clio were to go down, we have like our template saved in my drive. Microsoft Drive, whatever it's called now. OneDrive, thank you. And we save them there as a backup. So if anything were to happen, we can go and find it and do the manual processes. But every time we create a document in Clio, we print it out. And so we have a hard copy of it in case that does. But as far as like a contingency of, oh, it's not working, what are we going to do? Go find the hard copy or wait until it's back up?
Well, the other thing I'll say is that Clio has, and I don't quote me on the numbers, but Clio has a astronomically high uptime rate that you can ask the Clions for the actual percentage, but it's the very, very, very high 90s. And as far as contingency go, Clio also has some backup options that you can subscribe to Amazon S3 buckets and other things for backups within the Clio environment. There's backup options if you choose. And then a third thing is, if you ever want to, you can always at any time export your data, whether it's your contacts, your matters, your notes, your calendar, tasks, and so on. And that's available within the exports, and you can see that in the help guides and whatnot. So there are a variety of options that are available for extracting your data, either if you on a periodic basis or using the Amazon S3 bucket. Someone had a question back here.
Contingency plans are a wonderful idea and have been around for forever, but we're in a new world. And one of the things that you're getting with Clio or another subscription service is the responsibility of the security of that data belongs to Clio. The minute you do anything about bringing that data down to your environment, you have to renegotiate with your malpractice insurance carriers, because now that backup is in your hands. And so backup of data and contingency plans are different than when we had a complete backup of your data center to another location that you could switch to. And a backup of a data is not a backup of the program. them. You have raw tables and lists of documents and lists of all the time entries. You can't do much with it. Okay. So the amount of time that this has gone down, you have balanced between the I'm not responsible for having a server, and I'm not responsible for having enough hard drive space for my 12. I'm working with a client right now with tens of terabytes of document storage. Clio is providing that to you for free. Where are you going to put that in your contingency plan? So you have to be very careful when you talk about contingency plan. And you can also go to the status webpage of Clio at any time and see that 99 or 98% uptime. In the 10 years that I've been using Clio, it has been down for more than 3 minutes 3 times.
Right. So when we're talking about small percentage, it's a really, really small percentage. Could you advance the slide for the next one?
Yes.
So we're just about out of time. So I want to make sure that we put our information up here. We'll be happy to stay afterwards if there are any questions that we might be able to answer. And I really want to thank everyone for their attention and really acknowledge our panelists. We put a lot of thought and effort into trying to find a balance between, the ways that everyone does things and what might be unique. And I hope we did a good job for that and gave you a little bit of a unique perspective.